Welcome back to the video. This is the one part of the tournament review that was happening this Saturday, and it's going to be the first one when the Void Eye was actually released. And we'll take a look how much it was picked and what happened in the game that it was actually picked in, because that is usually a good time to do this in the circuit before everybody knows what we are going to do. And here, the very first game we see it used, it is picked by both actually as a starting pack. One time in a Sledgehammer Void Eye combo pack with a aerial spec of all things added to that. So there's some great benefits of doing that by having a lot of options and a lot of DPS options as well. But I think mainly it was done for the Sledgehammer pick in the end. And on the other side, we have Quick Supply, Spider, and Void Eye, which I think is a pretty good combo because you have both a tank and a AoE chaff clearing unit in the same spot, and you can also add some crawlers turn one. So I think Fleet Command's setup here is pretty good for playing the Void Eyes in the end. Immediately what happens though is in the first turn we get a ASIM push versus a normal setup on the other side, and it is a turn one click actually of the aerial mode. So it's an auto win for Fleet Command. Probably didn't need that because of the tarantulas, but we will watch this round because this is a very special use case which is enabled just by having quick supply. And as you can see here, he's not sure where to pit these units because this is a pretty nasty combination to go against on a round one. Now, and up until this point, nobody has ever picked the neither the starting unit nor the unit drop unit actually. So I'm very interested to see how they perform here. Now we will just take a look what the Void Eyes do over here, because those Void Eyes will win the round. We know that. But as you can see here, this is the problem with the opening pack on this side. There is no chaff clear. The sledgehammers do die too quickly. And this is exactly, I think, one of the use cases that this Void Eye unit has. It will enable the spiders to eat through sledgehammers even faster. And it will let them stay secure for now. On the other hand, I'm not sure if the aerial mode is really that impactful this turn, because the aerial mode is a great surprise tech that your opponent has to play around. I think that's one of the biggest upsides of having it on the bar. It's even more upsides than actually clicking it for the most part. As we can see, for this turn one, it goes pretty well, and we will see how the rest of the game performs a little bit later. And as we can see here, losing another round after the last one. Now the area spec comes in, and there's a Wraith flank coming in with supportive Phantom Rays as well. Both units that can deal quite nicely with Void Eyes, and since they already have that aerial tech online, getting range as well costs you 500 and is not feasible anytime soon, while a Wraith can still deal very well against them, and this one already has range clicked. So he will destroy these rather quickly and will also get a good amount of the additional XP here, where the Phantom Rays can't get quite one shot and also do take out the supporting spider on the bottom here. So overall, I would say a good tempo early, but now we are in trouble in terms of just air fighting in general. And this is how the game ends. We see there's a full range and aerial board Void Eye board here. But the opponent went for steel balls with mechanical division, which is something that the Void Eyes do not like at all, because they get to shoot at crawlers yet again. And they don't have an EMP effect that they can actually apply to them since they're now in the air. Which is why Fleet Command also went in and ahead and took Raidens with electromagnetic shot, doubling that one. You see another problem with the Void Eyes. They get one shot by that missile here, having even at level 3, not enough HP to surpass the 3k that we were talking about. And still the problem, the Wraith, especially with 8 gun, is perfectly equipped to deal with these guys, even if they have the range, since they on 135 versus 115 is just not enough distance, and they get one shot by the AoE damage of the Wraith in general. So not doing too well this game, but interesting early game decision here for sure. So not a normal game by any means. And here we got the second game immediately after this one, with Steelsane picking another quick supply opener, also with Void Eyes in the pack itself. Whereas here on Red's side, we do not have any Void Eyes to speak up, so it's going to be a very similar setup here. Only that Steelsane actually went ahead and just recruited another unit instead of actually using any techs or something like that. His techs on the bar are the same as last time, with charge shot, aerial mode, EMAG, and range. And I think those are pretty solid techs. I don't think the other ones quite make the cut. But we will have to see what the other people will play in terms of the game in general. And here we can see this is the Void Eye's favorite target, the shooting at the Sabertooth. And also doing very well against the Arclight as well, which is also one of their targets, if somebody peels for them, that is. And in this case, we have the big body Tarantula that thankfully has a little bit more range, but they stack quite on the Tarantula as well. So if it gets shot by high AoE damage, they will die. And so we see Void Eye is performing very well against the Sabertooth, but now comes the problem. They are not very good against Fangs, as I mentioned in my other video that you've hopefully watched. So even with 3 models, they still will lose every time against a normal shove round as per se. And that is actually quite painful. It's very similar to a Phoenix, as I said. And again, we see those pesky missile strikes coming into effect yet again, which will kill a lot of them early. This is now the final board state. As we can see, the Void Eyes have been ranged, but not all upgraded, and there's a lot of them on the board, just like last time. And we can see one clear disadvantage, even though Steelsane was very ahead and deploys the entire game and paid for deploys the entire game. The Void Eyes simply take a lot of deployments out of your army, and even if you got the marksman for free, there's still negative deployment in terms of chaff and whatnot. So we see 0 units behind the tower here once the entire spell hits and stuff like that. So we have to be a little bit wary here if those Void Eyes will actually connect to the targets that they need to. And since they are at the moment not even in aerial mode, they will get killed by Raidens very easily. And even if they were in the air, they would die. Same with the Fire Badgers. The Fire Badgers do very well against the Void Eyes for now, since they don't have as much range advantage when there's a advanced power system at hand and they come in too quickly. But as you can see, it's still pretty close, but the Void Eyes can't make the impact in this game that Steelsane wanted them to. And in the end, it all came down to the air superiority fight. And then directly the next game after, we luckily get another sample, and it's another, for whatever reason, Tarantula and Void Eye start, but actually there was a blue start as well offered, but he chose not to do it, and instead went for the crawler, Stormcaller cost control spec, whereas his opponent chose the quick supply directly, probably because of the Tarantula again. And he also has 3 on the board now with double crawlers and whatnot. So a similar start to what was Steelsane doing in the earlier game as well. This time we have a diagonal deployment. Now, in that case, we can see that the Void Eye barely survives a Stormcaller shot. So they will get splashed rather easily because they move very slowly. And they also will stack up to the spiders very, very hard. So they might get splashed upon just by being in the vicinity of the big spider. So the peeling is not quite working out here. They would need range, and then the tarantulas obviously would want range as well. So it's a little bit awkward to play this unit because they have so much of a similar range and not the long range like the Phoenix would have it. But we can see doing well against the sledgehammers as we already were talking about, so that's not an issue by much, and the rest of the game is won by the crawlers. However, we see the Stormcaller stuff is very janky, so if there is a solution to the crawlers, it will most likely delete both the tarantulas and the voids, getting countered both by one unit until they actually take to the air or so do something similar. And this being the end state of the board, we can see the Void Eyes were not utilized anymore by red. And we are just evolving this into a normal Tarantula Mustang and even some Phoenixes behind that. So it's just wasted deploys at that point because I think the Phoenix is in a very similar role. And there's no point hitting the air since the anti-air of the fortress will wreck both the Phoenix and the Void Eyes respectively. And there's a lot of overlap with the roles. I think the Phoenix is being preferred here a lot of the times, especially in the unit drops, which so far nobody has chosen freely. Now, this game is particularly interesting because we haven't had a Void Eye opener on either side, and we see there's a ASIM ball push with some ball support, some round support, and also a Phoenix here. And then the unit drop shows us a double level 3 Void Eye. So far, we only have seen the round 2 double Void Eye basic deploy without any upgrades. And this time, we will actually see somebody picking that and making this the primary carry unit, so to speak, while having a Phoenix on the board, which I find very interesting. And it's also in the finals of the game. So he's a big believer, apparently, and see how that does overall. Because it's a very aggressive push. They should be staying behind their respective tanks. But also probably a reason to pick air at some point because there will be oil in the near future. In terms of tech, we have nothing new. It's always the same for all 4 same techs as far as I could tell, because most of the players never deployed a single unit, so I can't tell if it's not chosen at any point. Now on turn 5, the Void Eyes actually get some additional deploys and also the aerial mode as we suspected. There's still no oil or anything like that going on, but we can see oil being picked up right now, so a great time to press the stack and see if it actually stacks up. This will also enhance the speed to 14 now, so they can stay behind the steel balls a little bit more closely and actually attack the primary targets that they should. However, we still have an overlap of steel balls, Void Eyes, and Phoenixes all being pretty much DPS units, only fulfilling their respective roles a little bit differently. But it seems like Goat still wants to do that. And also deployed some Void Eyes here to answer possible boat fire badger pushing that Blue does here once again, as he used to in the other matches we saw. Doing a little counter aggression push pretty much. Also interesting for our case, he does not respect the Wasp drop at all, and he's lacking Chuff in the back because he chose to deploy more Void Eyes this turn. So getting punished pretty hard and not a fair assessment of the Void Eyes actually combat stats, let's say, but much more a why deployments are very valuable and you need units that actually deal a good amount of value for their deploys. Now on run 6 we finally have the range upgrade for the Void Eyes, Again, more boats getting deployed, as we discussed in the other video, that Overlords have a pretty good matchup into those Void Eyes in terms of their damage and their range capabilities, and also being able to peer for themselves thanks to Mothership. But Gorgius is still doing pretty well here. Overall, he has a lot of pressure with the beacons and whatnot, and has a good push going. And I would say the Void Eyes damage against both the Fire Badgers and the Sledgehammers is rather useful here, since those are targets that the Steelbolts do not necessarily want to target. So they're clearing away the mid-shove, and the Steelbolts would take care of the big hitters if there were any on the ground right now. But that's where also the Void Eyes will come in. When the Steelbolts get below the bolts, they blow them up. As we can see here, a good amount of damage was dealt, although that Phoenix still being MVP, even though 0 techs on it, and still on the same range as the Void Eye. So we have to ask ourselves, is it really worth doing that, or could we have achieved the same with having Phoenixes on the board instead? Then round 7, Disaster Strikes. There is Typhoons coming on both sides, and this is where everything starts to get a little bit wonky. We get every specialization on the Typhoon as well, and the bolts actually get their carry techs online, which makes the matchup 140 range versus 135. And then the temp range hits with 155, so it's getting a little bit worse, and the Void Eyes have had their levels. Not too many, but the Overlords are all level 1 Overlords, so I think it's a pretty fair comparison here in terms of just value on the board and also the techs invested, since those Overlords are extremely expensive in comparison to just the Void Eyes. However, the Typhoons and the like were teched most likely because he was expecting a Mothership, and Mothership would be very devastating for those Void Eyes. However, Mothership has a delay, and 3 delayed Wasp will be spawned, so it's still questionable whether or not the Typhoons will be around at that point, and if they can actually outcarry those Overlords in the end. I think the game is winnable here, but it has to be different unit deploys in order to make this work. But right now we can see that the Overlord carrying is pretty good. We get the dreaded carry matchups, but the tower pushing of Goat is just better here, and he gets the debuffs and cleans this up. And in that case, obviously the Void Eyes will have more than enough damage, you would think. But as we can see here, the boat is still trading evenly, because the unit is so squishy that even with a debuff, the boat can actually splash and kill multiple of them, even though it's not supposed to be dealing any damage for the foreseeable future. So that's a little bit wonky there. Even with the advantage, it's not such a big one that I would call that a true win. Now 2 rounds later, we finally see triple tagged Void Eyes, not having the EMAC yet, but the charge shot instead, making them more effective against clearing those Overlords. But this is also where Mothership gains a lot of value, because if the Typhoons die too early, the Mothership will spawn Wasp, and those will set back those Void Eyes a lot, since the attack interval got nerfed to 4.4 now, instead of their usual range. And as we can see, the Typhoons do clear a lot of them, but the clock is ticking. As soon as those get spawned, this unit has to be in the way and actually trying to attack them. But as we can see, the superior range of the Overlord is killing those Void Eyes rather quickly, and there's still Wasp in the air when the Typhoons die on the other side. And that is with Ares back and barrier on those Typhoons, although they are not leveled. And as such, the Void Eye carry cannot make it here. I did replay the round. It was entirely possible to win, but it needed something else other than the charge shot and whatnot. And it wasn't getting better in terms of his position late game. All right. That was a very interesting display of a carry, though, and I try to make them a little bit like a Phoenix, just more hard-hitting, essentially. And there were no faults or anything like that. It was just a carry-on-carry action. I believe clearly the Overlord, for now, was the winning play. All right. Now we got another matchup of a opener with the Spider and the Void Eyes. In this case, it's another quick supply spec. Who would have thought? Probably the highest pick rate in this entire tournament when there is a Void Eye opener at all, which is a very low chance. And on Rooster's side here, there's also the Ares spec again, the Ares spec Void Eye Sledgehammer combo that we saw earlier being played. So we have a pretty much standard deployment with a bunch of chaff clear versus a spider push down the middle, although not a very aggressive one for now, where we see how the game turns out later. So for now, we will watch the first turn, because it is interesting to see how the Void Eyes will perform here, since they have been paired with chaff clear on Rooster's side and also on the other side. So now we see them as a support unit in against Sledges and also against the Arclight, which is going to be the big point. And we see they deal the damage. That's exactly what they're designed to do. They also perform very well against each other. Who would have thought? But as we can see this, it's pretty much a draw. I wouldn't count this as a major win for any of them. But in the end, the Sledgehammer gets the snipe off, and that seals the deal. So in terms of early game performance, I would say the as long as there's a Tarantula or Arclight on the board, I think they will be doing fine. If there is no chaff clear, I think that's going to be a very hard round for you to win and take tempo to get the XP on these guys. As we can see here, we have half XP, 0, half. And on this side is also half, 2/3, and 1/4. So they're getting some XP, but getting them down early didn't seem that impactful, even with the big boys here dying. And in terms of damage, the Spider still outperformed them, and the second one very close to. On the other side, it was a little bit better, but in the end, still the most performing unit was the one on the side here, usually because it gets a few shots into Tarantula. So if they hit, they are very good. Just the issue is, do they hit? That's the main idea behind the unit. And the low range is punishing the unit pretty hard early game, I would say. If it was just 10 or 20 range more, I think that it would have been a very, very different unit, especially for the early rounds where you would stay behind your tanky units a bit more and not get splashed by the Arclight at first hand. Another round has passed here, and Aimer actually got his levels on the Void Eyes and also chose range. Took a Hound Pack in the drop that came this turn, whereas Rooster picked the quadruple Marksman and did not get any levels on the Void Eyes yet. They are pretty much at half or 3/4, so they're not performing very well overall. Usually thanks to those additional fangs and also the spiders being added to the front line here. So double the spiders is obviously a big deal. So now we can see how these guys will perform once they actually get upgrades, because this, I think, is pretty much best case scenario. You have hounds to tank, you have the spiders in front because they don't have range yet, and the Void Eyes do have a 1 level and the range upgrade as well. I believe that should be pretty much as good as you can get. But you can still see, as soon as there's chaff in the way, these units are having some problems. Very important to note, this Void Eye has 1688 HP, so it doesn't get one shot by those other Void Eyes, so that's a pretty big difference. And also the level 2 version can one-shot the marksman just in one go, since those only have a base HP of 1/8. But still looks like an okay play, but in terms of just having an upgrade, not that fancy overall, I would say. Very similar to the first turn where we're talking about them. Right, on turn 6, we have another upgrade coming. Now Rooster decided to pick up the Stormcallers and try to Stormcaller this stuff down, which I think is a very good play, as we saw earlier. Makes you even weaker against an air transition, but for now he has the marksman from the early game. However, we will see a bunch of levels on the Void Eyes and also now the charge shot. So Aimer believing he needs more damage on this board. Has to do something with the unit drops that were offered, because most of these units, like the sledgehammers, would get killed by the Void Eye just regardless. But since those are level 2 sledgehammers now, they will actually be tanky enough to tank those Void Eyes pretty easily, especially the level 1/1. They now deal 4k damage per shot. So the sledgehammer just barely dies even to 2 Void Eyes hitting it with 1 level down. And they also would perform better against the Sabertooth, but if we can see, we have a little bit trouble finishing it off because the attack rate is just so slow. But overall, the Phantom Race will win the round by taking out the tower, and that's pretty much it for the... Right, this is the final round, and now, as we can see, we finally get those aerial modes at the very last possible time, which I really like, because now the aforementioned marksmen are pretty much the only thing that can threaten those Void Eyes, and even if only Void Eyes stay alive, it will be enough damage to finish. This is something I really like about going aerial mode late. You get a chance to bait your opponent and threaten them to have anti-air. If they don't respect it, the lack of anti-air will kill them, and having a few unupgraded marksmen is probably not gonna be enough to kill them outright, so he keeps deploying them as a last-ditch effort. And he has the additional deployment slot that I was talking about, so his deployments are fine in terms of chaff and everything. Still doesn't have much late chaff, but he does have a lot of units, and they are very efficient at dealing with those big boy saber teeth, even though they are supposed to be very tanky. This is pretty much a gigantic board of phoenixes at this point. And there's, if you want to go anti-air, you have to do it in the round before, which means you get baited into actually picking those marksmen earlier and trying to prevent that. But at this point, there's just way too many Void Eyes on the board, and they will take over the right flank and beat the ground army here. Now, in terms of damage, a level 2 marksman here has 6,300 damage. So all of these Void Eyes still would die, even if they have level 6, by the way. Just keep that in mind. They are very squishy. It doesn't matter how much the level is. This level is only relevant for this case, for the actual damage output, because the damage output is really good. The question is the unit actually performing in terms of just the normal... can I kill it faster? It's not about tanking at all. It's very different for hounds and the like. They get tanky enough, I think, to warrant them leveling, or they used to at least. Now, in this case, I think the Void Eyes successfully overpowered, and Rooster didn't make use of those Void Eyes very much. They are pretty much dead deploys now. So unless you can leverage them, I think the opener is just straight up worse with having them than by having any other unit in the first place. But regarding my final thoughts about the Void Eyes performance, I think it was very seldom picked. If it was picked only in combination with the quick supply spider pack or with the sledgehammers. And performance overall, I didn't see one Void Eye truly win. That was only carried by the Void Eyes themselves, other than the one game we saw against Rooster. Other than that, the pick rate was just very, very low. And if it was picked by people that I haven't watched, they didn't perform well, because I always look at the top guys from all the different region tournaments, and I could not find very many games where Void Eyes were either picked or used at all. And in 2 cases, they were just dead games straight away, round 5 crushes. So I would say it's probably not picked because many people haven't figured it out what they want to do with the unit and how they value the unit. But for now, I think my impression is that it's a pretty low or special case unit that you would only want in distinct scenarios. I have unfortunately not seen any EMP tags being clicked and it being used as a different unit than you might expect it to use. But I think people are a little bit slow on doing stuff like that. Usually this comes later when the idea is better understood and the players will actually try to operate this unit and not try to go all in on carry units, because obviously then the EMP is probably not worth your time most of the time. All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like. If you have any wishes or something like that, put it down below in the comments. And if you saw a game where the Void Eyes actually did very well, and if I missed a great game from the tournaments, then please let me know, and I will check it out and see if we make a video out of that and see different use cases of the new unit. Thank you guys for watching, and bye-bye.